Welcome, everyone. I'm not the master. We're all the master tonight. That's why you have possibly a fresh piece of paper on your table. If not, maybe your neighbor has a slice there with a rough edge, and that might come in handy with any sort of interaction tonight. Tonight we have two longtime Rochester entrepreneurs here with us to explore their work. I'd like to ask the audience to raise your hands. How many of you here have ever painted on a wall? Any wall, public or private, indoor, outdoor, wherever?
Does a bathroom stall count?
Yeah. And how many here have watched anyone paint on a wall? Okay, most everybody here. In one word, how did it change your view of the wall? Shout it out. Anything. Tip of your mind. Colorful, magical, alive. Preservation. Relief. Better. Uplift, beautiful, very, very great, very great. Okay, so tonight we're going to be discussing walls. Walls as barriers, walls as categories, walls as inspiration, walls that might not even exist where you think they would, and walls that are there where we might think they aren't. Here with us is Shawn Dunwoody. To my immediate left, Shawn is a Rochester born and raised, right adjacent to the Public Market District, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Born and raised, MCC graduate, artist, activist, artivist.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Artivist.
We fight.
Who through his integrative practice has evolved Dunwoody Visual Consulting into various approaches to social design with site-tailored directional word muraling, community design as a city public arts coordinator, as well as graphic product design utilizing to convey themes in neighborhood-led work, such as his Fruit Belt project, along with curatorial event and production-based work with Four Walls Art Gallery.
Are you talking about me?
Oh, yeah. I got this all off Dunwoody.com, ShawnDunwoody.com. And there's lots of work up there from the past fashion weeks of Rochester. I recommend looking up photos of Shawn from last couple fashion weeks. His artist as social designer approach has interwoven with many local institutions, businesses, schools, all the way to Brazil, along with public space initiatives and campaigns. Shawn ran for Rochester City Council, expanding the debate in last year's election. He is also more recently one of the advisory board members for the city's Rock the Riverway initiative, in collaboration with state funding to transform the way our downtown embraces its Genesee River. Over there, Dr. Ian Wilson is also here tonight, born and raised in the Brownsville, East New York neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York City.
Go Brooklyn!
Came to Rochester in the 90s for a degree in medicine through U of R, and has since deeply immersed his interventional radiology practice through fellowships, journal publications, teaching, innovating work at Highland Hospital, and merging that work with various arts institutions. Dr. Wilson is the founder of the citywide wall therapy, mural art programming, bringing international artists here and stemming them off into not just the mural art programming, but also raising funds and awareness into medical philanthropy, an effort to bring diagnostic imaging into unstable countries, successfully done in Bangladesh through Impact, all part of the nonprofit Synthesis Collaborative, and innovating teleradiology with cloud computing. Most recently, though, innovating his medical practice locally with Rochester Endovascular over off of South Winton Road, a startup, outpatient, one-of-a-kind healthcare option treating circulation issues and education around them, particularly with underserved patients. So that's a lot of intersection.
Give it up for
That's
Dr.
I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
What?
I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. That's all. That's it. I read some books.
Lots of multifaceted work, a mix of arts and culture and medicine and civics. This is very exciting. Shawn, do you know anything else about Dr. Wilson?
Wow, he's a great guy. I'm just saying that.
Is that funny?
Yeah. They know you, obviously. No, but years ago when he talked to me, what was that? Was that 8 years? How long is it? It's been about 8 years ago. He said, I have this concept, and I was like, I gotta be a part of this. I will say what I say about Dr. Wilson is when I actually go and work in other groups or neighborhoods and work with young people. In particular, young people of color. I talk about wall therapy, and I explain that this is a brother that's a doctor, all right? You call him doctor, right, Doc?
Sure.
All right. And has actually tipped the culture of Rochester. This is phenomenal. So you have to examine what he is. So his place, his pillar to hold the cultural fabric of the city of Rochester is very valuable. And that's what I know about Dr. E.M. Wilson.
Good. And also has a German Shepherd, I noticed on Instagram. Very good. Yeah. See how that...
Best dogs around.
Yeah. And Dr. Wilson, anything I missed about Shawn Dunwoody that you might...
So, as Shawn was saying, I met Shawn way back, actually through Mocha Atlanta, met the Baobab, way back in 2006.
Yeah.
Shout out for the Baobab. Anyone knows that institution. And Shawn struck me as, one, a very talented, energetic guy. You get the sense when you meet people, that there's something that's really special about them. And when I first decided to do this mural project, which eventually became wall therapy, I'd be remiss to not involve local talent, in that project, as it started with 4 artists from South Africa, from Cape Town. There's no way that I could bring folks from Cape Town to Rochester, not, have a local talent and a superstar, involved. Honestly, when I think about Shawn is, here's a guy who's he kind of epitomizes what it's like to carry, home in your heart. And to give back, to the community that gave rise to you. And so, that's what I think about Shawn. And so when I had that project, he was one of the first folks that I approached with this crazy idea, to invite artists from the other side of the world, to come to Rochester to paint murals. Which, why Rochester? Why from Cape Town? There's a lot of mystery, behind that. But Shawn signed on, And he lent his talents to the project, which eventually became wall therapy. And so I'm just very grateful that someone who's from here recognized the value of what a transplant was bringing. So thanks, Shawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
you. Let's get more into Shawn's beginning. Right. So yeah. Why?
So my mother and father.
Why Shawn? Yeah. No. Let's go a little past that to how you would characterize. Your upbringing and how you came to form what anchors you into the city of Rochester today. Why would Dr. Wilson, find you? How did Shawn Dunwoody decide to hone a living into Dunwoody visual consulting, fostering work like the Fruit Belt Project, which in 2015 employed a group of Rochester City School students? Let's get into how you came into your shoes.
That's a good question. I'll give you the short version. Well, Rochester is a phenomenal city. I guess I do carry a great deal of love for the city. It's small enough that there's a quarter degree of separation from anyone. If you've gone to Wegmans, you're going to come across everyone here, or Harts or any other local establishment. But I was your kid. that no one wanted to. I'm not going to say that. I was your kid that was hanging out, that was doing their thing, mischievous kid, teenage parent, part of the system, all that stuff, broke and beat down. But there were a few Rochesterians who were able to look at me and say, regardless of the situation that surrounds you, or the four walls that are there around you, you are something else. Those four walls then became bridges. Once those walls drop, they lead into other avenues and connectivity in life. And throughout life, I've learned to realize that you can't turn your shoulder to someone. Everyone has value and has worth to give to you. And I've always tried to glean as much as I can from individuals, no matter how I look, however they look. However I come across, I actually ran a social experiment for years, personally. For 2 years, I dressed as if I was homeless to see if people would talk to me. And an artistic homeless as well. I actually wore these big chicken bones around my neck, and I had a furry foot. I had this weave, and I sold all these weaves on my feet. And I just stood around downtown to see if people would actually talk to me and who would actually be genuine and direct with me. And I found there were a great number of people who are willing to expose themselves and willing to listen and understand who you are. And so those Rochesterians, those bulbs, those flowers of this great flower city begin to shape who I am. And so now I want to give back. I don't want to give back. That's the incorrect term that I want to say. I want to give side to side, because if I'm giving back, I'm not actually paying attention to you. I'm still focused forward and not really working with you. But when I'm side by side, just as in this interview, we're equals. And we have to work together, and we're always facing forward. No matter if we turn to the side, left or right, we're always going forward. And so this is what I've adopted in working with young people, tackling a wall, that these walls are now bridges. They're no longer barriers. There's means of connecting people, neighborhoods, through social growth and social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so let's get into a little bit of that. How do you tackle a wall? What happens? What were some of the earlier walls that you organized group mural painting around, and how did that evolve into making a living for yourself?
Well, at first it starts off in the studio. You're there in the studio and you're painting. Any artists out there? Any artists? That means everybody out there is an artist. Raise your hand. They're like, no, I'm not. Do you all write your name? Do you? Okay, you were taught to draw. You know that, right? Okay, so you're drawing every time you write your name or you do anything else, and you've all pretty much know how to dress yourselves and color coordinate, so you're pretty good. You're looking nice out there.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. I forgot your question.
Yeah. Well, no, speaking of that, we have paper. We have paper up there,
I got so in tune with the audience.
Yeah.
I forgot your question.
Yeah.
The first walls. I got it. Okay, I got
the first walls. Yeah. What do you do? What do you do for work here in Rochester?
What I like to do is engage. So I'll take an instance of it. Let's take a wall or a neighborhood, and I try to employ this in many other things. You mentioned fashion, whatever. It's about design thinking. How do we look at a problem and approach it differently? It can be with paint. It can be with fabric. It could be with people. The city of Rochester is a canvas of people, a canvas, and the people are the pigment waiting to be shifted and moved to create a movement here in Rochester to shape things. And that's been the climate of Rochester since its beginning. We continue to flow and keep growing, just like the waterfall itself, and that energy moves us forward. So when I approach a wall, it's not that I'm approaching the wall, it's that I want to talk to the neighborhood. I want to talk to the people that are there. I want to be engaged to understand what can we do together. It's no longer about what I can accomplish, because what these two hands can do doesn't really matter if I can't connect to the person that I'm working with or talking to alongside me. I can leave something here and say, oh, it's fantastic, look at how great it is, look at how straight my lines are, whatever it may be. That's not the point. The point is about engagement, having people be a part of a process, to be part of the city, to say, I take everyone from 2 years old to 102 years old and say, hey, put your mark on this wall. Your voice matters. That's how I try to approach it, is giving this painting voice to those who are voiceless. And so that's how I approach it now. And that's actually always been my approach. I've always wanted people to be engaged in the process, to get myself out of the studio and be in public's eye, and take criticism, and take critique, and take accolades, and be able to move forward and work together with individuals to do that.
I know there's a lot of walls, particularly there's one right just a block away over on the City Blue Imaging that is one
City
of
Blue
your...
in the house. I see you back there, Mark. Hey!
That's the nearest Shawn Dunwoody. Let's get into Dr. Wilson a little bit and see what we got with Dr. Wilson. You grew up outside of Rochester in East New York, a neighborhood in Brooklyn. So how did your early experience and work shape your entrepreneurial directions? What did you want to do with work, and how did it come to be like this?
Well, the entrepreneurship started, with a background just in the arts. I grew up above a train yard, actually, and my older brother was a New York City graffiti writer, and so my friends and I would watch the trains, going in and out of the train yard, and there were these pioneering graffiti artists who were neighborhood heroes, who's some of them have passed on, but that was our earliest exposure, to art, and then I realized the power, of art and to inspire. As a kid, there were handball courts all throughout New York City, and especially in our neighborhood, that had murals on them. My father was a painter. I was a writer for a while, and so I've always kind of been immersed, in the arts. It's not like a passing interest. It's kind of part of my identity. Like I've known about graffiti since I was 6, and so I'm 44 now. So it's always been part of my the fabric of kind of who I am. And so interestingly, the entrepreneurship with Wall Therapy being a social entrepreneurship venture prepared me to start a medical practice, because there's nothing, about my medical education or training thereafter that would prepare me to start a small business, in Brighton, New York, but it's everything. I say that there's a lot that I've gotten from the art world in in the past 15 years of my life that have absolutely changed the trajectory of my life because of, the exposure to the arts and what I've gotten from the arts. It's been an exchange. I've been inspired by a lot of my artist friends who are practicing artists, professional artists, from here and abroad, and that's actually inspired me. They're some of the bravest people I know are my artist friends. And they put themselves out in the world with every project, and they leave themselves open to criticism, and so and praise and all of that. They take it in equal measure, and so part of entrepreneurship is being able to kind of withstand that, and I learned that from taking some critique, with some of our murals with Wall Therapy. There's
Nothing about bears.
There's a backstory.
I know there's. I know there. It's a great story.
Yeah, it is. But that was 6 years ago, so 2018.
Yeah, we're very forward.
That's right.
Search Bears Wall Therapy. Search.
We're moving on. You're the moderator, so
yeah.
Where are we going to take it? We can go.
Well, I mean,
I'm just harassing him. That's all. Go ahead. Keep going.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
being an arts and culture worker myself here in Rochester, involved with a lot of forms of public arts engagement, social outreach, community organizing. It's pretty easy for me to draw connections throughout the multifaceted work that you and Shawn have been doing. But as Shawn did earlier, show of hands, how many here would say you're an artist? Raise your hand. There's a considerable amount of people raising your hand, but there's also a considerable amount of people who aren't. And what's going on with that? Why? How does that work? I've put out paper for anybody who's sitting at a table to maybe draw on or take notes to try to work through what we're talking about. And how many of you here have a utensil? Raise your hand. Are most of those the artists, or do all the artists have a utensil? Maybe you could share the art with the others next to you. That what I'm basically trying to get at is, it's easy for me to like draw the connections, the social aspect to the art aspect to even the medicine and what you're doing with image-based work. But like Shawn, what would you say in your work has been the most challenging to cultivate, where along the way transitions or assessments have you found the most knots or hang-ups, challenges in conveying what what you're trying to do and why it's worth paying for.
Okay, okay. Going back to now, I remember you did ask a question. I'm going back to your first question. You talk about work. It is. It's that brave point. It's that not being fearful to approach an individual, a business, a corporation, and say, hey, I've got this wacky idea of doing X, Y, and Z in your establishment, or creating these shoes, or I'm going to put some crushed cars in the middle of a street for you. How about that? You remember that one? Whew.
That was Fashion Week.
That was actually Fashion Week. It was in a parking garage, which is a whole other world.
Okay.
But this was during From the Ground. So it's about thinking creatively and drawing from individuals and taking that and saying, here, I'm going to package this up, and here it is, and this is why it's beneficial, and this is how it works. So that's what I do. But that stretches past, that moves past a wall, past whatever I can sculpt or create. It's about community design and focus. And as you mentioned earlier, talking about city council, that's what I wanted to bring to the table to council, was design thinking, different ways to approach a problem. How do we view this differently, and how do we tackle it differently? Maybe some of the traditional ways hasn't worked, but your question, this second question, was about some of the setbacks and hard and things that are troublesome as far as this process.
Yeah, how do you convey, your peers appreciate your work
as
an artist?
That's not necessarily always true. That's not always true.
Many, let's say you're valued in Rochester. You're valued.
That's not always true, too.
You're on the advisory board for the Rock the Riverway. Okay, I just saw that all over city newspaper today, so there's something going on. What I'm trying to get at is a lot of artists, artists have a lot of support from their peers usually, but as far as being paid to live in the city and work as an arts and culture worker and do the type of work you and Dr. Wilson are trying to do, maybe Dr. Wilson, what are some of the challenges? You've been quoted by NPR saying the connection between art and medical philanthropy is the imagery. Street murals enhance life. Medical X-ray imagery preserves it. What's your process been like in terms of funding and some of the things you've done? Like, did you have any trouble getting permission to get artists painting the stairwells in Highland Hospital? Or what's coming off?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, the one of the biggest barriers to taking any idea, and this is kind of was applicable to entrepreneurship in general, is you have an idea, right? You're the inventor. You got an idea that you want to bring to the world, and one of the biggest barriers to translating that idea into something that's real is belief. You absolutely have to believe in what you're doing, because that's the currency that you exchange with other people. That's how you get other people excited about what you're doing, is you believe in it so much that your eyes start swirling, and people kind of say, like, oh, yeah, me too. Like, yes, that's something that really we should do, we should do. That's the other part of it, is that, it's all about building a community of like-minded people, and that applies, again, to any field of endeavor, any entrepreneurship venture it happens. It's not in a vacuum. Social entrepreneurship by definition is more than just the individual, right? Social. It's within society. You're not doing anything in a vacuum, whether it's art related or whether it's medical. I mean, I'm taking care of patients, and their families. There's nothing happening, without the view of someone else, But that's one of the biggest things was to actually just have to really believe what you're doing, and so that is what I have always had with anything that I've been involved with is a unswerving belief that this thing should be, whether it's a mural project, whether it's this crazy idea to bring artists from Cape Town to Rochester, which is very delusional to a lot of people, except for the fact that it happened, And so I almost had to do it for my own mental health, because I'd be confronted with the question of, wow, this guy is really disconnected. Like, he can't, distinguish, what's possible from what's not. And very little is not, possible, especially when you reach out to others and you kind of build a group of build a community. That's how there's no activism on your own. There's no entrepreneurship on your own. You need to be able to build a team, build a coalition of people that see things the way you do, to see a problem the way you do. You talk about design, any design is a solution to a problem, and so if you identify what the problem is and you are able to convey to other people the need to solve that problem, you'd be surprised at what you can do.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what you said. The Believe is actually so true, and that was actually the first wall mural.
Mural, Believe, yep.
That was the first one, and you're right. It does. It takes that first. It takes that first believer, that first apostle, to believe in you, and that person actually will spread the word and get other people on board. When you get that sensation, that connectivity is very, very important, and that takes place whether you're approaching a wall or you're approaching community design. A couple of projects. I've actually reached out to a lot of people in this room for a lot of different things. It does require a village, a tribe, a team to actually collaborate and work together and believe and move forward together and individually to help support that idea that you may have. And I want to thank you all who I've worked with or who have supported me or in the past.
Yeah, it sounds like there's an organizing component to being an entrepreneur. It's not just for advocacy campaigns. It's not just for getting someone to vote for somebody else. It's you're creating social circles. You're creating a community, a platform to And you say it's delusional, but then year after year, wall therapy grows and grows and grows. And your work grows and grows and grows, and now. I know you're proud that you're on the Riverway Advisory Board, and you joke a lot about this meeting. You've joked a lot, but I know you see your progress.
Thank you. It's just to bring a bit of light, because that's how I am. I want to make sure that I try to keep myself grounded as much as I possibly can.
Well, here's something to ground yourself with. I got a quote. A Shawn Dunwoody quote. I've quoted you. You like to put other people's words up all over the city. I got Shawn Dunwoody quoted in the city newspaper. Can we celebrate the time we have together around the art and appreciate it? It's our interactions that make the art interesting. And it's our personal connection with the piece that grows us. That should be on a building.
Thank you.
Let's get that on the next mural.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The other barrier to ideas that are worthwhile becoming real is funding. Honestly, a lot of ideas, a lot of causes, a lot of businesses that are worthwhile go nowhere without funding. So things can stop at the idea phase. The other part, to translating something from the realm of ideas to the here and now is money. And that's something that is in short supply, and as a lot of folks, would agree. But it's possible, to find funding for your ideas. Again, if you convey the idea with enough passion and you have a sound plan and you're believable and the thing that you're describing is actionable, then you'd be surprised that you get funding for your ideas to be able to translate them into a reality. So
I want to let everyone know, before we go off into side conversations, Dr. Wilson's work with Rochester Endovascular is really super powerfully interesting. Read the latest city newspaper's Rochester 10 from 2017. He's one of the Rochester 10. That article is a good primer. Go to walltherapy.com if you want to see an amazingly documented year by year of all of the mural work, and Shawn Dunwoody as well. Look up the Fruit Belt Project. We didn't even get into the Fruit Belt Project, his work that took 5 Rochester City School students into an employed program of mural making, not just making murals to paint a wall and have it be great for the neighborhood, but it actually was work, and that's, I think, what ties a lot of this entrepreneurship together is not just a city that has arts and culture by chance, but a city that embraces arts and culture as work. And if you're going to have artists being able to live in this city in the future, you need to support those artists right now.